Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex from A&W Tractor again. This video will be covering a D15 Allis-Chalmers. So you just bought a D15 Series 2 tractor. This is what you need to know. The Allis-Chalmers D15 was made from 1960 until 1968. The Series 1 tractors were made from 1960 to 63. And the Series 2 tractors were made from 63 to 68. So the Series 2 was a better version of a Series 1, essentially, with some minor improvements, one of which was more horsepower in the engine. On this tractor, the Series 2, the engine is 160 cubic inches. The horsepower of the tractor would be 46 horsepower on the PTO and 38 horsepower on the drawbar, giving it a little bit more power over the Series 1s. The D15 was really meant to replace the WD-45 tractor in the Allis-Chalmers sales lineup, but it was found to be slightly underpowered and definitely underpowered for torque wise. So they decided to give the engine a larger bore and increase the power output to be somewhat comparable to the WD-45 tractors, but it still lacked in torque. So today's video I'll be covering what you need to know if you just bought a D15 Series 2 tractor. So normally the D15 Series 2 will have updated decals, so it'll be easily identifiable with the Series 2 decal being here on the gas tank. This tractor's been repainted, so it's not obvious according to the decals. But by serial number, we know it's a Series 2. Other minor improvements on the Series 2s were 6-bolt front hubs on the later Series 2s, fender mounted headlights here facing forward, and a dry air cleaner instead of an oil bath air cleaner. So I will be covering lubrication points, fluid capacities, how to change them, and operator controls mainly in this video. So let's start at the front of the tractor here. The front of the tractor you have the radiator cap. The capacity of the cooling system is about 2.5 gallons. I would recommend using the normal green antifreeze in here. Mix 50-50 with the distilled water. That would be the best option. And the drain for the coolant system is in 2 places. The first drain here requires removal of the grill screen, easily removable with 4 bolts. The radiator drain petcock is right here, just inside the grill screen. And there is the second drain petcock on the side of the engine block here, behind the carburetor where it's slightly inconvenient. So if you're draining or flushing the cooling system, you want to make sure both drains are empty and then refill with the green coolant. Underneath the radiator we have the power steering gearbox, or the normal steering gearbox if you don't have power steering. You check the oil level with this vent plug behind the grill screen as well. That is also where you fill it. The oil level after removing that vent cap should be level with the top of the sector gear inside of the housing. To drain that reservoir, there is one drain plug located under the front end right here. Takes a 1 1/8 inch wrench to remove. And the type of oil you should use in that gearbox there, if you don't have power steering, I would recommend 80 W90 gear oil, and the capacity for the non-power steering tractors would be 4 quarts. If you do have power steering, which this tractor does, the capacity is 5 quarts for that reservoir and power steering system, and I would recommend using trans hydraulic oil The type used in the Allis tractors is equivalent to Allis-Chalmers 821 power fluid. And the reason I recommend the trans-hydraulic oil is just to standardize fluids throughout the tractor. The original spec was for equivalent of some sort of ATF fluid, but it's not very handy to keep separate can of ATF on the shelf just for one small reservoir on your tractors. So that's why I recommend just using the trans-hydraulic fluid in there. Works just fine. So moving backwards from the radiator, we come to the engine. The engine here is a 4-cylinder gas. It is 160 cubic inches, and it takes 4 quarts of engine oil. If changing the filter, you might need to add another quart. The engine oil is checked with the engine oil dipstick located right here. And you can see there is a range. Make sure your fluid is up to the full mark. The engine oil is drained with the engine oil drain plug located at the bottom of the oil pan right here. Takes a 1 1/8 inch wrench as well. And the engine oil is filled on the top of the valve cover. Right here under this fill cap. So that is the engine oil. And as far as the type of engine oil, if your engine has been freshly overhauled or is really tight, not too many hours on an engine overhaul, I would recommend 10W30 diesel engine oil. If your engine is starting to burn oil, getting tired, etc., I would recommend 15W40 diesel engine oil, just because the tolerances have wear on, rings have wear on, etc. The thicker oil just helps keep everything lubricated with the wear in the engine. While you're working on the engine here, and maintenance-wise, on the Series 2 D15s, you have a dry air cleaner located right here. To check the air cleaner element, remove this cap here at the end, and your air cleaner element removes under the cap. You want to, at minimum, remove the air filter element and use compressed air to blow it clean at least as often as every oil change. Usually every week or every day if under very heavy usage. And these hoods I like because they allow for quick removal and ease of service on these D-Series tractors. So, moving back from the engine, right in the torque tube section here, the first fluid in the torque tube is this section here, is the hydraulic oil. Now, the hydraulic pump operates the rear lift and any remotes you have out the back of the tractor. The drain for the hydraulic section is right here. Uses a 1 1/8 inch wrench as well. And I would recommend using the trans-hydraulic oil, Allis-Chalmers 821 power fluid, to fill that reservoir. You can check the hydraulic oil on this breather cap / dipstick. There is a range on the dipstick which you should keep your oil level in. This is also the fill port on the hydraulic section. So right above the hydraulic section here we have the fuel tank. Capacity is 15 or so gallons of gasoline. You want to make sure you don't have water settling in your fuel tank. And one of the systems on this tractor, just to keep it running properly, performing good, is the Sediment Bowl fuel filter right here. This petcock here on the top is your fuel on-off switch or valve. The glass sediment bowl here, and above the glass you have a small screen up inside the housing there. That's just to filter out any contaminants or dust, rust particles, etc. that may find their way out of the fuel tank and into the fuel system. The large particles will settle on the bottom of the sediment bowl and get separated out of the gas flow. Same thing with water. Water will settle below gasoline, and it'll go to the bottom of the sediment bowl. So that should be removed and cleaned periodically, every 100 hours or so, I would recommend. Speaking of 100 hours, the engine oil needs to be changed regularly. I would really recommend changing the engine oil every 100 hours of operation. It really needs to be changed. And every time you change the engine oil, I would absolutely recommend changing the oil filter as well. You want to take good care of your engine. That'll allow for the best possible performance out of the engine and your tractor. Okay, moving backwards in the torque tube section of the tractor, behind the hydraulic section, we have this section here in the rear part of the torque tube. That oil reservoir lubricates the power director clutch and PTO gears in the torque tube. That reservoir should be transhydraulic oil as well, equivalent to Allis-Chalmers 821 power fluid. The reservoir is checked and filled with this dipstick and vent plug, which happens to look too much like a bolt. This is not a bolt, it is actually a plug and dipstick for the power director oil. The capacity is 10 quarts here on this section. To drain the power director oil, the drain plug is located at the bottom here. Uses a 1 1/8 inch wrench. Moving back from the power director oil, it is the transmission section of the tractor. So the transmission oil lubricates transmission gears, bottom and top shafts, and the differential, located in the same housing behind the transmission. That oil is checked with this vent cap and dipstick combination. The bottom section of the dipstick is the range of where your oil level should be at. Do not let this dipstick, do not let the oil level, drop off the bottom of the dipstick. It is critical on these transmissions that you do not run them low on oil, otherwise you'd have trouble. I would even recommend keeping the oil level up to 1/4 inch above the highest part of the range on the dipstick. The drain plug for the transmission is located way under the seat on the bottom of the housing right here. Takes a 1 1/8 inch wrench as well. And the capacity of the transmission is about 15 quarts transhydraulic oil, equivalent to Allis-Chalmers 821 power fluid spec. And there's only two more fluids on this tractor here. They quite often get overlooked, and these oils lubricate the final drives on each side of the tractor here. You can see this final drive oil pan here. Inside that final drive, or this one here, inside there should be 80 W90 gear oil. It takes approximately 1 quart of oil to fill that reservoir. 1 quart on each side, since they are separate reservoirs. To change the oil, there is no drain plug. You must drop this pan down off of the cast housing of the axle. There's a cork gasket that goes in here, bunch of bolts that take a 9/16 wrench. there is a plug on the side of the pan here. You can see that. That plug is your level plug and fill plug. So if you drain the oil, drop the pan, you can either fill the pan before you bolt it back up, or you can bolt it back up, remove the plug, and then fill with oil up to that level. So that should cover the lubrication and fluids part of this tractor here. Another critical part of maintaining your tractor is greasing. There's not many grease zerks on this tractor, but there are a few on the front end here. So on the wide front tractors, you have your spindle and your L-shaped axle knee. There's a grease zert here on the knee to lubricate your spindle and spindle bushings. One on each side. You're going to want to grease that until you see grease coming out of the top or the bottom here of the axle knee. There's also grease zerts on some of these tie rod ends. Here you can see a grease zert, and on the inside both tie rod ends here have grease zerts. Most often from the Allis-Chalmers factory, these tractors' original tie rods did not have grease zerts. So the aftermarket tie rods or the new replacement ones from Allis have grease zerts, which is a good improvement, absolutely. The front wheel hubs are another part of the tractor that needs to be greased. So the wheel hubs themselves do not have grease zerts unless someone adds them, either on the outside or on the inside. So to grease these wheel hubs here, the procedure is to remove the hubcap, remove the hub off of the spindle, remove the old dirty grease from inside the hub, pack it with new grease, inspect your bearings, and inspect your axle seal there while you're at it. That's a rather labor-intensive process, but it does need to be done to preserve the reliable performance of your tractor's front end. That greasing and cleaning of the wheel hubs should be done at least once a year, minimum. The pedals do not really have any grease points on them. Sometimes if you have a 3-point hitch instead of the snap coupler hitch here we have, there's going to be some grease zerts on the back there as well. Just make sure that your clutch pedal and the brake pedal shafts underneath move freely. Squirt some oil on them from time to time just to keep them lubricated. The steering joints usually do not have grease zerts on them. The U-joints just are not greasable unless they've been replaced with new aftermarket ones that do happen to have grease zerts on. The pivot, a section of the wishbone of the front end, should have a grease zert on the front here. Right under the tractor, there should be a grease zert right here, but we can see it's missing. That's not very common, but it does happen to grease zerts time to time. They just fall out or they get bumped with something. And keep an eye on them, make sure if they are missing to replace them. That lubricates the front pivot of the tractor. The rear pivot of the front end here does not have a grease zert. Check that from time to time, make sure all the bolts are tight there. And then we come to the operator control section of the video here. So the operator platform and seat at the rear of the tractor, of course. So going from front to back and left to right here roughly. First control is the clutch pedal. The clutch pedal should spring back up to the released or engaged position. Pushing the clutch pedal down stops the tractor's motion, stops the PTO if it's engaged, stops the hydraulic pump. You must push the clutch pedal down and disengage the engine clutch to shift the PTO, engage or disengaged, and to shift gears. on the transmission here. Backwards from the clutch pedal is the PTO lever. PTO lever disengages and engages the PTO out the back of the tractor. The engaged position is forward. Disengaged position is back, almost straight up and down like that. And like I said, you must depress the clutch pedal, disengage the clutch to shift the PTO to engaged or disengaged. Moving up from the PTO lever is this lever right here, the first of 3 levers behind the steering wheel. This is your hydraulic control lever. In the bottom position there, or back, is the lower position. This lever runs or actuates the hydraulic pump located in the torque tube here of the tractor. If nothing else is hooked to the tractor implement-wise, all this lever will do would be to raise or lower the rear lift shaft. If you want to go around the back there, the rear lift is part of the snap coupler hitch. You can see it's in the lowered position right now. So this lever in the raised position here will actuate the hydraulic pump and pressurize the lift arms to go up. If you have a remote implement cylinder hooked to your tractor, it will also pressurize that and raise your implement. Between the raise and the lower position of the lever is the hold position, located roughly about here. So the hydraulic pump will neither raise nor lower the implements in the hold position of the lever if all your linkage is properly adjusted. This lever above the hydraulic pump lever is your traction booster lever. You really don't mess with that. Just leave it at the bottom of the quadrant there, unless you're using a moldboard plow or some sort of other mounted implement that you want the tractor's hydraulic sensitivity system or traction booster system to help you maintain traction and level. So the lever on the other side of the steering wheel here, can the camera guy go around back please? This is the throttle lever to run the speed of your engine. The lever at the top is idle. Moving the lever down towards the back increases the RPM speed of your engine and would be at full power output when the lever is all the way down. Just a tip, to start the tractor, if everything is connected and working properly, I would just crack the lever about 1 inch to 1/2 inch off the top. That allows for easy starting of the tractor, and you definitely don't want to start the tractor with the lever at full throttle. Starting the tractor up, you want to give it at least a minute to circulate the lubricating oil in the engine before increasing to full throttle or revving or taking off with a big load behind the tractor. Just again helps extend the life of the engine and not wear out internal parts prematurely. So the steering wheel, of course, turn the top to the left, tractor goes to the left, top to the right, tractor should go to the right. The lever below the steering wheel here is the gear shift lever, which I've talked about before. Your shift pattern with your gear speeds is stamped in the top of the transmission here. First, second, third, fourth, and then reverse. So on these tractors, each gear has 2 ranges in each gear, allowing for 8 forward speeds of the transmission. Now, the 2 speeds in each gear is accomplished by this lever to the right of the steering wheel here, this large mechanically operated lever. This is called the power director lever. It actuates the power director clutch located inside of the torque tube. This lever has 3 positions. All the way forward is direct drive or high range for the transmission. in the middle position is neutral. Now, the power director in the neutral position will allow the tractor's movement to come to a stop or slow down while still allowing the PTO to turn and run a PTO implement. This system makes the PTO live on this tractor. It does not have independent PTO, but it does have live PTO. The lever in the back rear position engages the transmission again into low range. So your speeds are essentially cut 30% roughly from if you were in high range or direct drive. And you may notice that I'm having a hard time shifting this lever from the opposite side of the tractor. That's because this lever is mechanical, like I said, and snaps over center into each range and takes about 60 pounds of force to do that. If your lever moves very easily, that is a sign of a misadjusted clutch internally. There are shims for adjustment. That's getting a little bit into the service side of this video, so I won't go into that adjustment. Next to the power director lever, you have this lever right here. This is the parking brake lever. It actuates a cam to lock the brake pedals in the engaged position. Definitely do that. Actuate the parking brake whenever you're getting off the tractor, if it's still running, or at the end of every day when you shut the tractor down. It's always a safe precaution to lock the brakes with the parking brake lever. This lever right here, behind the brake pedals on the right side, is your snap coupler release lever. This actuates and releases the hook inside of the snap coupler bell under the tractor. If you have a mounted plow or implement, it will release that, allowing you to drive forward out of the implement. Right now the drawbar is snapped into the snap coupler bell under the tractor. So to hook up to a mounted plow or disc, you would have to release the drawbar first and then hook up your implement, and this lever will allow you to release whatever is hooked to the snap coupler bell. I think that pretty much covers the control levers here. Of course, these are your brake pedals. This little tab here locks the brake pedals left and right together. Not many of the D series tractors had this. This was I believe a Series 2 option, not option. This lever came standard on the Series 2s and later D17s, but the early ones did not have that luxury. So as far as operator controls go, I think all that's left here is the instrument panel. Your instrument panel is located below the steering wheel. Has the gauges that you need to keep an eye on while operating the tractor. The upper right is your coolant temperature gauge. Make sure this stays in the range that it's supposed to and does not get way over on the right. That would call for immediate shutdown of the tractor to diagnose why your engine is getting too hot. The center right gauge here, that I believe is your traction booster gauge. That works with your traction booster lever and the hitch traction booster system. Just allows you to see what kind of pressures are being put on the rear lift when you're utilizing the traction booster system. The upper left gauge is your amp gauge or charging gauge. Allows you to keep an eye on if the battery is charging or how much of a load is being put on it. The center left gauge is your engine oil pressure gauge. It's important to keep a very close eye on this gauge. If your engine oil pressure drops down all the way to the left, that means your engine has lost oil pressure, and oil pressure is critical in the engine to lubricate the moving internal parts. So if you lose oil pressure, immediately shut down the tractor. You want to fix whatever went wrong before your engine fails catastrophically, which will happen if you continue to run it without oil pressure. The bottom gauge here is your tachometer, and your hour meter is inset into the center of the gauge. It allows you to see what kind of speed you're traveling on your tractor and the RPMs that your engine is running. Key switch, start push button switch, dash light. This is your choke cable. If in cold weather you need to choke the engine to start it, that's where your choke cable is located. And your light switch here is in the lower right hand corner. Above the steering wheel and on the back of the fuel tank, you have your fuel gauge. That allows you to keep a close eye on your fuel level of the tractor to allow you to not run out of fuel when your tractor is located very far away from your fuel tank, of course. This tractor in particular has an auxiliary hydraulic valve set up on it. This is not factory. You will not find this on hardly any of these tractors, so I won't go there. Toolbox is located to the right of your tractor seat. And I think that's pretty much covers it here. One other thing I will mention is tire pressures. The rear tires on the tractor, you should air them up between 12 and 15 psi. The front tires here, I would recommend putting about 32 psi in the front tires. They're going to be about a 550/16 up to a 750/16 size. And the last thing I want to explain in the video here is where the serial numbers of the engine and the tractor are located. Let's face it here, these tractors are old and it's only a matter of time before you need to replace a part, right? So we'd be glad to help you with all your parts needs. A&W Tractor, of course, right here. You can call into our parts department. We'd be glad to help you. But if you call into us or any other company, most times you're going to need the engine serial number of the tractor, the tractor serial number, and possibly the engine serial number if you're looking for engine particular parts. So the tractor serial number is located right here on the flange of the torque tube where it bolts the engine. Starts with D15 and then the numbers follow it here. That's the tractor serial number located in that place on a D15 tractor. Now the engine serial number is a different number. You can find that behind the carburetor and this air hose here. It is stamped in the side of the block right here. The D15 Series 2 engine will start with the numbers 160 and with a hyphen will be followed with the serial number of that particular engine. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that covers it. Just a general rundown and maintenance tips if you just bought or purchased an Allis-Chalmers D15 Series 2 tractor. So, as always, if you have any other questions, leave a comment below. Call into our service department or parts department. We'd be glad to help you. 920-598-1287. And the next video will be dropping soon. Stay tuned. And for right now, happy tractoring.